Today's guest, high school cheerleading coach. So we're going to hear a lot about what the whole school side of cheer sounds like.
Yes.
She's certified in 3 different systems: Open, USASF, and probably one more that I'm forgetting. She is a phenomenal human being. She hails from the northern side of North Carolina. Chanel Degree.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for being on Hit Season. We're so excited to kind of just deep dive and hear about your story and cheer and how we all get back to cheer. Yes. So tell us, how did you get introduced to cheer?
So I started when I was in 3rd grade. Pop Warner was really big in my small hometown. I started from there. I did try softball. It was not my thing. I remember the coach telling me to run into home base to get a home run or a score. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. My mom was like, you're done. Like, you don't like getting sweaty and dirty. So it wasn't my thing, more my sister's thing. So like cheerleading was my thing. Like I loved cheering. I was like a leader. And I just grew up from a Mighty Mite all the way up to, I think, a Pee-wee at that time. And then I continued on in middle school, in high school, and then in college.
That's awesome. So what was it like, when you went from that school side of kind of looking into the all-star world? What was that like to kind of make that switch and understand, like, what were some of the differences as you were growing up? Did you ever consider all-star, or was it really solely you were really looking at more towards that school-based cheer?
More to school-based cheer. All-star was not really big in my hometown during that time. I think the biggest all-star place we had was in Lincolnton, North Carolina at the time. So all-star really wasn't a big thing where I grew up in. I didn't really see all-star bloom and knew more about it until I moved to Raleigh in 2010.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. So school cheer. Big difference now between school cheer and all-star, huh?
It is a huge difference.
So what do you see the differences like just in today? I mean, obviously things have changed and cheer has progressed as a sport probably from when you started your school cheer career to now what it is. But let's talk about now. Like, you're a high school cheer coach.
I am.
I'm assuming some of those athletes are probably all-star cheerleaders.
I've had a few. I don't typically do a lot of all-star cheerleaders on my team.
Yeah.
Just because of the conflict.
Sure.
Of like scheduling, the demand, the mental, emotional, physical stress. But I do have an athlete on my team now that's an all-star, and I have in the past. It's very different. I think it's a shift change. Like, we have some of the same elements when it comes into all-star and high school cheer, but there's some different elements because in scholastic cheer, is what you call high school, you get the cheer component, game day stuff where you're live at a game, and you don't get that component at all-star. And so that typically when I have all-star girls that are on my team, they tend to struggle with the sideline component of cheerleading. But they do great with the building and the tumbling part, but the sideline, they do struggle a little bit with that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So by sideline, do you mean the pepping up and encouraging of the crowd, or is it more of that kind of having people there that you're interacting with on a...
Having the enthusiasm, energy, and doing the cheers, like out there cheering on the football, the basketball team, leading the crowd, being crowd engaging. I mean, because they don't have to do that in All-Star. It's strictly the 2 minutes and 30 seconds of building, tumbling jumps, or not even sometimes tumbling. And with high school, we do it all. We do it all. We dance, jump, tumble, build, and you have to cheer. So it's different, especially when you look at routines that are 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and they got to cheer and then have that rest of that energy to do the portion that they're used to. It sometimes is a challenge.
It's interesting and kind of ironic in a way, right? Because you're taking the thing that it is, which is cheerleading, you're leading in cheer. And typically in all-star, there's not that factor.
Correct.
And so it's funny to hear that the athletes that are, I would say, at the most competitive level of cheer, which would be all-star cheer, are typically having a harder time doing the thing that it is, which is cheerleading.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a really funny, like, full circle moment, the way that kind of all happens.
And then there's sometimes where I do have all-star athletes who are really great at doing it all, but I find that most of them really struggle. And the thing is, I tell them is, if you want to cheer in college, you need that sideline component to make a
100%.
college team.
100%. Because, I mean, that's really what your role is, right? Is to be cheering that team on for the success of the school.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you find that, especially with the all-star girls, when they're used to like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, they might have to go the entire game, or they might have to go for an entire pep rally. Do you find that it's hard to keep their momentum up so long? I would think that for somebody, sometimes we struggle seeing all-star parents trying to hype the girls up and it's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I feel like that would be hard to kind of keep that momentum up for the girls, or maybe that's just another way sometimes it doesn't translate as well.
Yeah.
I have not necessarily seen that with my athletes. I can't speak for all, because they are competitive and they're used to, and I do feel like all stars can be a little bit more challenging than scholastic cheer. But I do feel like they do a good job of being able to keep that momentum up. But where I see they lose it is, like you said, like not the momentum of like being able to do the skills, but like the smiles, the engagement, like the energy, like throughout the whole thing, like, and I feel like it's a different type of energy and enthusiasm when it comes to all-star and high school. All-star, they do all the shaking and the shimmy, versus like scholastic, we don't do all that stuff. It's just smile, jump around, shake your palms. But I train the athletes when I know they are all-star to be like, listen, it's kind of different in high school. Like there's some of the same components that overlap, but there is some very different components when it comes to high school cheer.
I feel like though that there's benefits to both.
I agree.
And that
Absolutely.
like the skills and the stunts and the tumbling that you take from all-star, and it can really benefit the routine.
Absolutely.
From a scholastic standpoint, but then from like an crowd engagement and showmanship and those kind of bottom of the score sheet, last minute items really can help from an all-star side. Because you can go and watch an all-star routine and it can be flawless, but if they have no showmanship, it is the most boring routine. I don't care what they're doing for skills and stunts.
You hit the nail on the coffin. There's been several times where I've judged and I'm like, oh, this routine is good, but they don't have the energy. They don't captivate my attention. So I'm like, you just did all that for what?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's a good routine, but
it's checking boxes and you're just executing. We've actually talked about this a couple different times. So a team I'm like semi-obsessed with is C4 Bomb Squad from Cheer Extreme. Mm-hmm. And when you watch them, they not only come out and execute, but they have this showmanship about them. But then there's that fun factor. Mm-hmm. So they're so confident in their routine of what they're doing, and their showmanship is so outward that it just feels like you're watching a beautiful performance. It's not like, oh gosh, I got to make sure that my knees are pointed or my knees are straight and my toes are pointed. Like they just come out and it's just effortless for them.
I love that.
Yeah. And the showmanship is huge.
It is. I feel like the showmanship can make or break your team. Like that 1/10 or 2/10 of a point from you being in first to second place can really make or break where you land in a competition.
So let's talk about that. So let's switch gears, because you obviously are also a judge and have been for quite some time.
I have.
Before we get into the whole judging thing, because that's a whole gamut we can open up. Talk about how your skills as a judge. Now, do you judge for both scholastic cheer as well?
So I do scholastic judging.
Okay.
I do.
So how does your judging factor being on the other side of the stage, how does that help you coach your scholastic teams?
Well, I do a lot of studying the score sheets. Like when I do the trainings, I really take notes to be able to set my team up for success based on the skills that I know that they can perform accurately and appropriately with good technique. So when I'm judging, I know what the score sheet is on the score sheet and what is expected of a team. So then like when I'm coaching my team and I look at a score sheet, I can agree or disagree because I've been on the other side, like, oh, this is right. Like this was probably her on this side, and I really go back and analyze the videos and highlight, like this judge is telling you, like I've said the same thing. So it really helps both ways, because when I do judge, I'm able to know like what it is that needs to be done or required when it comes to scholastic. But when I'm on the other side, I can really read and dig deep into the score sheet.
That's really interesting, because I would imagine, as being on both sides of that, it does help you to really prepare your girls and yourself, and to really be able to be like, okay, the judge is going to say this is what they're looking for, this is what they want, so this is how you go out and execute it. I can imagine that would be really, really good to have that other perspective. So when you are, you're getting ready, a team getting ready, and you're wanting them to go out and you're wanting them to really perform in this incredible routine, that they are kind of looking what the judges are looking for. What is it like for you to have that, knowledge of, okay, this is what the judge is looking at? What do you give your team? How do you prepare them for that to say, okay, you know what, girls, your legs, maybe we know that your judges have historically not liked the jumps are not great. Or we know that routine, maybe the dance portion of the routine, or maybe the sideline. I'm unfamiliar with the sideline, so I don't know what the equivalent of the dance would be for sideline, but that they struggle in that. How do you really get those girls to understand this really is important? Like you said, it's those teeny tiny things that make a difference in the score.
So let me tell you, for dance, people don't really dance anymore in Scholastic because it's been moved down to like the overall category. So it's only 5 points. So like you do your little one
so
count motion, we're done. So motions, it's fine. So
That's
the easy check. Done. I wasn't sure what the equivalent would be.
It saves my athletes who can't dance. It's like perfect. We don't have to dance.
We don't have to.
But when it comes to like the score sheet, I present the score sheets to my team in advance. Like I do game day and traditional for my high school team.
Okay.
And so we really dissect, like, this is what it says what we need to do in this routine. So what I also do is I keep all my score sheets from previous years. So what I do is I go back and review those score sheets to see what they like and what they don't like, or what we didn't do well in years before and what we did well in. So that's how it also helps me choreograph my routines as well. And so I just tell my team, go out there, be confident, hit the routine. I always tell my team as well, I don't care about getting first place and winning. That's a bonus, right? I care about you going out there and executing the routine like I choreographed it, clean with good execution, and giving it your 110% best. And if we do win, that's a cake. What do you say? Icing on the cake for our team. But we look over score sheets. I let them see it. We talk about it, and we talk about it at the beginning of the season. And so I love that I can have the feedback from judges to help build my teams from the years after from previous teams. So I know what works and what does not work for my team.
Yeah, that's so smart to look at the years previous.
I keep all of them.
It's
in a folder.
Data doesn't lie.
No.
And if you really, especially when you get data over a long period of time, it really starts to tell a big story. But it also can tell a story of times are changing.
Correct.
What people are looking for is changing. And so that's a really smart move from a program, and from a holistic side of things for your program. If you are to move on from that program, now you're setting up your predecessor for success.
Correct. And what you say about times are changing, it's funny you say that, because like there's been years where you hit a routine with difficulty and it's good, but judges are really looking for execution that year. Or you hit a routine that has good execution and you're like, God, we didn't win. They're looking for difficulty. So like, I feel like it goes up and down years, depending on the judging panel of what they're looking for. You can feel like your cheer is super strong and really good. I'm like, this, like I use the same cheer. I keep the same cheer because it scores well. Then you get years where it's like, why didn't it score well? Maybe they're looking for something different. So it's like, you have to really know, like, and stay, I guess the kids say, hip to what judges are really looking for when you go out to these competitions. But you never know. And I feel like it's good. Like I do like prelim competitions, so I get the feedback there. So I was like, okay, so they're looking like more on execution this year, or they're looking at more difficulty this year. So like I can like based on like how I can make changes to my routine, or if I need to.
It's like filling out your taxes. They don't tell you what you need to do, but they will tell you when it's wrong.
When it's wrong.
And they're going to wait till the end to tell you when it's
At
wrong.
At the end.
It's just like doing your taxes.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you take that piece and bring it into your coaching. What do you take from your coaching side and bring it in when you're judging?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think about what I tell my athletes and like how I run my practices. So when I go to judge, I'm like looking at, I'm a strong tumbling judge. Tumbling is my category that I judge. So when I look at the things from the judging side, I look at things when it comes to like the execution of jumps, the execution of tumbling, how like, for example, like my girls do round off back handsprings, you better keep your legs together. So when I'm judging, I'm making sure the athletes are doing their round off back handsprings or back handsprings with their legs together, not drifting apart in the transition or the rotation. Even when it comes to tucks, like I look at those minor things. Well, I guess it's not really minor because it takes off your technique, but I look at those things just like I tell my athletes when I'm at practice, when I'm not executing them, but like when I'm giving them critiques and feedbacks, I give that, I keep that same mindset when I'm judging. But I do know that there's different programs, different choreographies, and different stylistic things that coaches like to do. And I try to, always stay consistent with the feedback that I give to teams when I'm judging.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, it's always, like you said earlier, it's always, okay, is the judge going to be more like execution, or are they looking more at the delivery? Are they looking more at the enthusiasm? Are they looking more at the showmanship side of it? So it's always kind of tricky for us kind of watching a routine. And, sometimes we'll see our scores go up and down. So what do you think when you're judging, obviously you more towards tumble. Obviously you're looking at, the technique of it, legs together, all that fun stuff. Are they hitting all their marks? Are they, doing what they're supposed to? But what do you think it is that sets teams apart that you're like, wow, that they really hit the mark on that? Or, you know what? Maybe they really did execute it, but for some reason it just didn't hit as strong as what do you think that secret sauce is?
Clear visual transitions and formations into tumbling, where I'm not having to stand up and count and see where all your athletes are when tumbling, making sure that they're visible to me, that, I can see their tumbling skills to give them credit. And I think a key thing when it comes to tumbling is just do what you need to do to hit difficulty. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we doing all these passes that you don't need and it's hurting your execution score? Look at that score sheet, read what you need, get your most pass and your majority pass and be done. Or run and tumbling. If you can do a group pass that's nicely done together, get the passes you need. And I'm not saying in the numbers not to add enough people, but do what you need to do to score difficulty and be done. Because I feel like what really hurts teams when it comes to tumbling, it's all the extra unnecessary passes that you don't need. It hurts your execution score.
Absolutely.
Or when, it's not clear or it's jumbled, or you're trying to have all these athletes do different passes. And I'm having to, now at this point, I'm standing up my clipboard. I'm having to stand up and look and count. And I'm like, gosh, when it just looks like you're wanting to play it looks like it's a soccer team and not a cheer team. I feel like it helps when coaches know what skill looks best for the team and they put it out there and they do it so they can meet the difficulty point and do well in execution. I think that is a big thing that makes a difference when it comes to tumbling. It's like, wow, this looks, you just want to throw your pencil oh my God, they did a well done job. It's
quality over quantity.
Thank you.
Because when you start adding too much, right? And that was something that we learned. So when we went to Regional Summit last year with our Y2 team, we got all the way to Regional Summit and varsity decided that they were going to put a youth medium with our youth small, or the youth. Yeah, we were a youth small and they were putting the one youth medium team in with us. At an end of year celebration. And there was a lot of disgruntled people, including myself, about that at an end of year celebration. During the season, go for it.
Right.
End of year, I don't agree. And so, but that was a topic that got brought up. Okay, yes, they are a medium. That means they have more people on their team. But that also gives their room for error much greater, because now instead of having X amount of athletes having to do a tumble pass, now they have this much more. So it's interesting to see the fluff. And sometimes I feel like sometimes too much goes into a routine and it just feels like a tornado went through the stage and you're like, what did I even watch? Take a minute to just kind of let the routine flow. It's almost like a choreographed dance, right?
Correct.
It just let it do its thing and it will tell a story. But yeah, quality over quantity.
I agree about that. Quality over quantity. I agree.
And I'm sure you've seen all sorts of different tumbling over the years. Good tumbling, bad tumbling. Do you recognize, after say there's 5 teams from a gym that are at this competition and you've seen 2 teams and the tumbling is strong throughout. Does that help you go into watching the rest of their 4 routines, or do you just essentially mind erase, watch the routine, mind erase, watch? What's your process there?
I mind erase and watch the team. I don't think, because I've seen 2 other teams, that, I'm not going to pay close attention to the 3 other teams because I know they have good tumbling. Somebody can mess up that day. Somebody can have a bad day. I look at it like I never seen those other 2 teams from that program. Like I said, I am a judge that I believe in fair and consistency. So I want to be consistent with scores. And people look at score sheets, what is your team score? And if they're all from the same gym, especially, you definitely want to be consistent the way you score. It's just if you see a team on day one, they were phenomenal. Well, day two is a whole new day for me. You start over new. I didn't see you yesterday. It's a new day for me. So I don't tend to do that. Like, you know, but when you do see like they have good tumbling technique in the two teams before, you're like, oh, I can't wait to see this next team because I know they're tumbling. Like, it's going to be easy to count. It's going to be great. Like, it's going to be super good tumbling, you know? So I definitely try to, it's a mind race. Like, it's a new team, not from the program. I've never seen them. So like, it's a clean slate.
Yeah. That's got to be tough.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, but you have, our job is to judge every team fairly and consistently, regardless of if we've seen another team from the program.
All right, so I'm going to ask a tough question.
Ask me a tough question.
Because
Hopefully I
I'm
got an
thinking of a
answer.
tough question.
Do you
so
think
I'm-
that's currently happening? Do you think all judges feel that way, or all judges act that way?
She says, I'm pleading the fifth.
No, I'm going to be honest. And I can say this coming from judging, being in Accuscore now and like really looking at score sheets when coaches come back and they're frustrated. I will say, I think most is more than majority. Yes. Most judges do that, but you do have some judges who their heart might not be in the right place to be a good judge, you know, to judge accordingly. And there is not a passion for them. They're just there to get their money and leave. So I would say there might be a portion of judges who don't do that. But I will say for the most part, most judges do the same thing. We want to judge fair and consistently.
Yeah. And I think that's so important because I think for the girls, this is really their, you know, if I'm a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, this is their first opportunity to really see any sort of judging system in a fair light. Okay, you know what? You have one team that went out, you have a second team that went out, and you might not agree with it, but the judge looked at it and they want to be able to feel like that judge looked at it and fairly and equally scored them.
I think that's tough too, right? Especially when you go to these comps that obviously have at least two panels,
Yep.
but some of these bigger ones that have three panels.
Correct.
And when you get some of the teams from your program with one panel and some of the teams with another panel, and they are drastically different, hashtag Atlantic City.
Yes.
That just stirs a whole nother bit of conversation because it's like, you know, none of us are judges.
Right.
You are, but none of us parents are judges. And we've seen the routines thousands of times, but it's one of those things where you look at it and you're like, okay, that routine had 3 stunt falls, timing was atrocious, and the dance was mediocre. Okay, 96, day 1. Interesting, with a 1.5 deduction. Okay, 96. Clean routine, some timing issues, but not as bad as the first one. Came out, they hit, and they executed 94-2. Okay, I'm sorry. What world do we live in where this is this? And then that just starts to create this whole thing. And a question that I have for you is, do you hear the chatter at comps between panel A and panel B? Not from the panels itself, but can you hear when you're out walking around, you know, when you get all your breaks that you actually don't get? Do you hear people talking about scoring? Do you hear people talking about panels?
I have definitely heard people talking about panels. And it's funny because it happens in high school too. Some panels are just a little bit more harder when it comes to judging because you think about it like this, and I know that parents and coaches get upset, but you also know that it's subjective, especially when it comes to execution. What you think looks good may not be what I think looks good. And you also think about the level of the team. Like if you're on a senior team, you know, certain things I feel like judges think shouldn't be happening. Like you should be able to properly execute these skills versus maybe somebody that's on a tiny or a youth. So it's kind of different in that sense. And there are some panels who are more experienced, more veteran judges who are more difficult because they have been in the game a little bit longer versus somebody that might be a new judge who is getting their feet wet that may not be as punitive as people who are veterans. Because I found that when I first started judging, I mean, I was still fair and consistent, but like I wasn't like nitpicking. But now that I've been in it for so long, it's like, okay, come on. At this point, like we should be jumping with our chest in the upright position. Like, why is your chest falling to the ground? You know, so there are things that I do feel like I am a little bit more punitive on when it comes to judging than I am with maybe some other, you know, other things when it comes to judging. But I do hear chatter about panels being different. And it'd be funny because I'll be walking, I'll be laughing like, oh, that was her panel up there, you know, like, because I know who's on the panel. But I mean, and I feel like parents and coaches have to understand, like, we want to give your teams the best scores, the most accurate scores to set you up for success for your end of the season events. And sometimes it may not always weigh in the favor that you think it should or how, but again, certain categories in cheerleading minus the difficulty portion is subjective.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so, and
Our
just because you thought
favorite word.
just because you thought your dance killed it, I might not thought that dance was good. Like this girl was not over here fully executing the motions. The music was too slow to the music. They wasn't a lot of energy. They wasn't giving it their all. It wasn't a wow factor for me, but you may think it because you're biased because that's your program.
Absolutely. So, what is it like for you to have a coach come up to you and say, I disagree with this, or I feel like it should go this way, or I think you should have scored this? What is that like for you to kind of have walk me through that process of what does that feel like from you? What is it like for you to explain your decision? And how do you react to coaches that, you know, are bringing their
So I
routines to you?
I first sympathize with coaches because I am a coach and I know how we fight hard and we're passionate about our team. Because I've had I'm not rude, but there's been one occasion where I went to Accuscore where devil horns were out. Like, you know how they have Mama Bear? Coach Bear was out. Let me be very clear about that. But I make sure that I'm professional, but they knew that I was heated. So I tell coaches all the time, like, I understand where you're coming from because I'm a coach too. So, but I want you to talk to me in a tone, like I understand you're frustrated and you're upset so we can go through this process. I can educate you and I can show you what it is we saw so we can mark that. Because I do feel like sometimes when coaches come back, they don't even read the comments that the judges wrote on it. Because we typically, when you're not in range, there's a comment on there. So for me, when I see a comment on as a coach, I see a comment, I go back and watch the video first before I go to Accuscore. Like I watch the video
yeah.
first. So I'm not going back there looking dumb, you know, not saying dumbfounded, but I'm looking crazy when the comment, because I'll be like, did you read your comment before you came back here? Like, because typically it's always there. But if not, if you want to get educated and want better understanding, I don't mind sitting down with you. I'll let you say what you want to get the frustrations out because I understand you want the best for your kids. We sit down, we watch the video, and I show them where the mistakes are, what the questions are to better help them understand why the call was made. But if I know that I've watched it and I'm not going to overturn what they're fighting, I'll always go out and be like, you know what, your shirt looks so beautiful today. Where'd you get that shirt from? And then I'm like, okay, so listen,
no, this isn't
this
happening.
is not I'm not gonna honor this, and I explain to them why. I try to make it light. Since I've been working at Accuscore, I've never really had a coach get rah-rah with me, is what I call it, like loud and stuff. I mean, they've gotten upset, and I just like rub their arm like, listen, I get it. As a coach, I get it, but we got to be consistent. And then, you know, it's always that thing like, well, I did this at the last event, and I said, we can't talk about the last event. We're at this event today. Like I can't discuss what you did last, you know, or, you know, the whole, I got the video from USASF. And I said, great, you do have the video, but just because how you performed it there and submitted it to get approved doesn't mean your team did it on the floor today. So like, it's the process of like explaining to them the steps, going through and watching the videos and showing them and like marking up the videos. I think it better helps them understand if a call was denied. But then if it's honored, they're happy. We hug it out, we move on, they're like, thanks. And I'm like, you know, excited for that. But I think it's more of an education process. And, you know, like I said, I understand being a coach, being upset when you get your score sheet and you're not getting the score that you think you should get. I completely understand that.
Absolutely. What is it that you would say that a coach might say to you that would actually convince you to overturn something?
You want a new Mercedes?
No, because I love my job and I want to be fair and consistent. Like,
Yeah.
you know, just like, for example, judging the routine, we've noticed like a lot of teams are doing forward rolls and touching their hands down. And that's considered like an athlete fault because you're putting your hands back down on the ground in a forward roll. It's been seen a lot this season. And, you know, staying consistent with that. Like if I call it on one team, I want to call it on every team and keep it throughout the whole competition because I know that coaches talk. I'm a coach. We look at score sheets. We text, you know, so, but for me, it's like, I show them what it is. Like, you know, and I think I'm going to tell you the biggest calls that we see is with building. It's rarely ever with tumbling. It's not a big deal because like you can go back and count well, let me take that back. This season has been with the Valdez has not been performed correctly. They're more like bridge kickovers. So like I go and show the coach, like this is not how it's done. Like I point out, I show them, like me, show me what girl is not doing it. And they like to see it. And they're like, they don't say some very nice things, but they're like, this girl, I'm going to get her, and they understand.
Yeah.
Or when it comes to building, it's always either the quarter up terms, half terms, or inversions that kills. The hip is not in the right place at the dip.
Yep.
And like, we try to, in Accuscore and with building judges, if anybody I judge for, we try to be very consistent with making those calls so that you're set up for success. So, I just take coaches back. I show them. After we sat there and talked, they might have some words, they might be upset, but then they understand. And I just tell them, we're being fair and consistent all day. So if we called your team on it, the next team that does is going to be called as well.
Yeah, we've
and
gotten
just fix
called
it for day
those,
two.
Those quarter turns. We've
They're
gotten,
terrible.
yeah.
What's it like to be in your shoes and I always call it the man behind the curtain, because I always see you guys like the judge goes over and hangs up by the table, grabs the score sheet. They're looking through it. They're flipping through it. They're shaking their head. And then they like turn back around and they go back to the table and they're like, and then the black curtain opens and then it's like, they disappear into the thing. And then I always just hang out and watch because I want to see. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and say that they didn't get what they wanted. And then they come out and they're like, and they're on their phone and they're texting and they're calling.
You got it down to it too. That's hilarious.
What's it like on your side though, when the coach comes behind and talks to you and you find out that you were wrong? Do you take it personally?
No, because I'm human.
Yeah.
Well, I make mistakes. So if it is something that a call is made wrong, I will acknowledge that, take accountability, and make it right and fix it.
Yeah.
If that happens.
So what happens when the coach comes through and they're like, I want this 0.1 back. And so you watch the whole video and then unfortunately they get the news that their 1/10 that they wanted to get back has now turned into a deduction because you saw something that you didn't the first time.
And that's why coaches didn't realize, pick your battles when you come back there to fight for
risk
things.
versus reward.
Thank you. Because if you want me to go watch this video for 1/10 of a point, if I see anything, a safety, legalities, deductions, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
So now your score just changed.
How does that conversation go?
Listen, it's not a good conversation.
No, I can imagine.
But when I do Accuscore, I try to tell coaches, if you want me to go back here and review this 1/10 of a point, I want you to know if I find anything,
I'm going after it.
I'm going to call it. So this is your decision. Do you want me to go back and look at this or not? And most of them take their score sheets back.
I bet. It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Especially when you watch a routine. So we had a routine that we saw a couple weeks ago that will go nameless. And there was a deduction for, it was like a 1/10, 0.1 deduction.
Okay.
And it was something very minor.
Okay.
The judges missed probably 3 bobbles in that routine somehow. And there was this big discussion. Okay, are they going to go back and are they going to, and everybody's like, no, the risk is not worth the reward.
Too.
Like, to get all those bobbles versus just take it and you move on and you count your blessings and thank the cheer gods.
I mean, it happens. Like I said, judges are human.
Yeah.
It's a live play. We're watching this live. And I mean, sometimes we do miss things. You just count it, like you said, as your blessing for the day. Cause it might not happen, at the next competition. And I know that it can stir up a lot of things with coaches. Cause like you said, if you watch the routine and notice you caught all these, but then I guess you see all the score breakdown and you're like, wait a minute. But again, as judges, we're not perfect. We're human. It's live. A lot of things going on the judges stand. We could have had a bad team before that took a lot of time. We always strive to do our best and to give our best for our teams, but those kind of errors do happen sometime.
Yeah.
And I just feel like teams just count that rare blessing that you just got.
So speaking of on that subject of hiding what do you hot topic question. Do you really think that hiding, like if you have bad jumpers and you put them in the back and they're like, oh, we're going to hide the bad jumpers because we're going to have a pass go in front of them, or we're going to put the really good jumpers in the front. Does it truly hide those bad jumpers, or are you still noticing it?
For a judge, I can only speak for me, from my judging point of view. I stand up with a clipboard sometimes. So I know that it's strategic for choreographers and coaches to put the best jumpers in the front.
Sure.
You can still see but here's the thing. Even if you have those good jumpers who are hyper flexible and, got good toe touches, if they're so jumps are so well, you can still see the ones in the back because their legs is not as high. You can see their chest is sunk up, so it really defeats the purpose. You know what I'm saying?
When I'm shooting video, it's so much fun because I shoot everything like with high frame rates because I want to use them in my edits, but then I also use them as like tools for some of our coaches to be able to go through and see like, you know, execution. And it's always so fun. You see toe touches and it's like straight legs, straight legs, straight legs. And then you look in the foreground and you just see two legs like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they might be like, you go shoot the video and it's like, it looks like they barely flicked their feet out.
And you know what I say when I do tumbling, I like to give very detailed feedback. So I'll be like, jumper in the right back formation needs to work on her hyper flexibility, point her toes. Like I give this kind of notes so the coach can know, like, no, I saw her. I saw them in the back.
Yeah, because we talk to choreographers and coaches, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we put our best jumpers in the front, and then maybe the judges won't notice."
No,
but
we know that's the
up from the crow's nest. Yeah. I always call it the crow's nest. So speaking of the crow's nest, which that's not even a term, but I call it that. Panel A and panel B. So at every comp, there's typically two panels, correct?
For most competitions, yes.
So how do those rotate out? So are both panels sitting up there at the same time? Mm-hmm. And are they sitting in a particular strategic, like do the tumble judges sit to the left, or walk us through like, what's it like up there? What's happening up there?
So if you have panel A, you have 2 building, 2 tumbling, overall, and a deduction. And sometimes you'll have 1 safety, depends on, because safety judges are very hard to find, like this very minimum this, because that's, you know, that test is super hard. And then on panel A, it's the same thing. So you have your panel. Well, panel B is the same. So panel A will have the 2 tumbling judge. Typically it's overall and then building. And then on panel B, it'll be your 2 building, overall, and tumbling together.
Gotcha. And so when panel A is up, I'm assuming panel A gets a schedule.
We all get the same schedule. It's just labeled A, B, A, B, A, B like that.
Gotcha.
With teams.
So while A is judging, B is finishing up on their score sheets and then getting ready to go back to
the next team. Yep.
Gotcha. Do you consult with panel A at all, or not really? Like, if say you have a call that you've recorded the routine, you're not really sure on something. Do you ever consult with, like, say, the overall or the tumbling judge?
If I'm in Accuscore?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I go get script sheets. Anytime a coach comes back there with building, like I said, building's the hot topic, or tumbling, I always go get the script sheet from the building judges or the tumbling judge to see what they scripted, and I go watch the video and script myself and compare to see what happened, what they give credit for. I read if they put a comment in there. And then once I make a decision, I go pull the coach back and we have a discussion.
So script sheet, talk us about what that is. I'm not familiar with that.
So we get script sheets, building scripts. We have, building is a building difficulty and a building execution. Mm-hmm. So as we're watching, and same for tumbling. So as we're watching routines, like I do tumbling, I am scripting. So how I script is I subtract. So whoever's not doing it, I put like -4 round out back handspring tucks, -4 handspring S, that means handspring series. And then building has to script out all the skills in order to know how to give the elite or advanced credit when they do it. And then execution has their script sheets where they can mark the points to know what they take out for. So when I do execution, which I don't like to do, I'm good at it, but I prefer to script. When I do execution for tumbling, I like make notes like, okay, in the round up back handspring tuck formation, athletes on the left needs to work on keeping their knees tucked to their chin through the rotation with their legs together. Like I'm specific with it. So like you mark it so you can have it in case, somebody needs to compile your script sheet, you put it in a computer. Sometimes it's a computer error. Like, you might have meant to put like a 0.2 and it hit 0.3. So they can go back and look to make sure that, our quality admin can look to make sure the scores are correct. So we all have script sheets. Overall have script sheets for theirs, and deductions have script sheet for theirs.
Wow.
That's really interesting.
Sheets. So we script everything out we see on the floor.
So do you do all of that manually? Is it as you're writing it and you're just doing it, or is it where you're inputting it into the computer?
It depends on who you judge for. So I judge for a lot of people. So like for most people, execution has the computer. So they can type inside. Like, so when I'm doing execution too, sometimes I write like a story as I go and then go back in and take off the drivers. But for difficulty, we script everything out, get our scores, and give it to the execution judge to input it into the computer.
That's really interesting. I almost imagine like, the little stenographers in court where they are, they're talking and they're
That's a good
writing their
analogy.
own little language.
There's like a little cheerleading keyboard.
Yes, that's what I'm imagining right
That is
now.
a good analogy.
That's interesting.
It's really interesting because I could imagine. So I know I have heard our coaches before talk about they kind of do their own script sheet ahead of a competition. So basically they'll write everything down. So that way if they come, like, let's say that it's supposed to be a, 2 back handsprings to a tuck, and then there's a arabesque extension in the back. So they kind of write it all out, and that way they can submit it and be like, this is what it was supposed to be.
Coaches that do that, thank you. My friend, he coaches and he has a notebook and he has all his routine stuff scripted out, like all the tumbling skills for each team and all the building. So when he does come back there, he pulls out that sleeve and he's like, here's my skills. And
That's what Corey does. I've seen it actually.
Yeah, I guess it's just being really prepared and knowing, because I'm sure, like you, to your point, you guys are human. You make mistakes.
Right, absolutely.
Things get missed. Drivers get missed. Skills completely get missed. How that happens, I don't know, but it's
I feel like sometimes that happens because the skills perform very poorly.
Yes.
So what you think is trying to happen, it didn't happen. I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. So we just learned about this new thing. It's called a major athlete fall.
Yeah, MAF. Yeah.
I had never heard of that. I was talking to one of the coaches. We had a
I've
athlete.
heard of a building fall.
Yep. This is called a major athlete fall. The athlete did a round off. What did they do? 2 to tuck probably, but the tuck was forehead to mat, and they counted that as a major athlete fall. And I had never heard of that.
I've heard of the building fall. I've never heard
Deductions
of
change all the time.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, is that something that gets sent out to the coaches at the beginning of the season? Because I'm assuming
I
they
was just
can't be
getting ready.
changed
Yep.
in the middle of the season.
All coaches get the same education at the beginning of the season. They get the same things. I'm sure things are sent out to them where they get the same education about any changes to scoring, any changes to deductions, because it doesn't change mid-season. Just like we get education at the beginning of the season as well, like the new rules, like things to look for. We have to attend webinars monthly to like read and listen to if things like, if it's something that they're commonly seeing across the board, or coaches are emailing about like, you need to be vigilant on this and pay attention to this. Like we get updates too. So coaches get this information, ahead of time. Like I think about being in Accuscore and coaches be like, well, I didn't ever see that. You get the same rubric and score sheet that I have. And I pull the rubric out. You have the same rubric.
That's so interesting, because that was going to actually be my next question. What is it like for an ongoing education for you to make sure that you stay up to date with score sheets and trends that people are seeing? And maybe, like you said, with the forward rolls, you're seeing a lot of forward rolls this year. So how do you keep yourself educated in trends and things that you're seeing, and making sure that those trends and things that you're seeing are also lining up with, are they following the rules? Is this something that I should be watching out for? Because a lot of teams, for whatever reason, seem to have these in routines.
Very good question. Like I said, we have webinars every month. And when we see like a common theme or trend across different competitions, our scoring director or whoever, whatever, depends on what event that I'm working for, they tell us like, hey guys, like we have like judges meetings before we start. Like, this is what we're seeing. Like I remember like last season, maybe 2 seasons ago, they were telling us about not taking off like 0.3 so much because, for things like, minute things that you shouldn't be taking 0.3s off. So like that was like a big thing one season. So like we get the education through webinars about like these big trends that we see, and we have to fix it so we're fair and consistent, because so that when they go to these big events, because they're a little bit tougher at judging at bigger events at the end of the season.
Absolutely.
So that teams are prepared. And like I like to take notes. So when I learn something new about, now being in Accuscore and like learning more about building, like I told y'all, like the most things that people come back and fight, I take notes to make sure that like I'm paying attention to these things. Now I'm never going to judge building. That's never going to happen, because they'll probably be like, she's done, because everybody get a perfect score if I did it. I'm serious. It's hard doing all that scripting. But they make sure that we are up to date on things that's been seen across competitions, frequently through our webinars.
That's really What trends are you
That was
seeing?
what I was going to ask. Yeah. Like,
Well,
what,
like I told you about like the forward rolls and putting your hands down, because it's really, you put your hands down the forward roll. You put the forward roll and stand up. You shouldn't be forward rolling and putting your hands down behind you. That's a fall. Your hands are hitting the performance mat. That's been a big thing. Or when you're doing a Valdez, you need to keep that leg straight and push off the leg that's on the ground, but people are putting their foot down and doing a bridge kick over. So that's like been a big thing this season too. Like, and of course, the hips at the dip, the initiation of the dip is always always a big thing. So that's what I've seen lately. Now, don't quit because I haven't watched a webinar for this month.
There might be new things.
But yeah, like there's some of the big things.
That's really interesting.
yeah, it must be interesting to see like routines, what people are putting in routines year after year, and what works and what doesn't, and what you see. Okay, this routine's got, they're all going up into arabesques, or they're all going into whatever heel stretch switch ups. It's got to be fun to be able to see those trends and how they've evolved, because we've had some conversations with some people and they've said that the skills today versus the skills 5 years ago are just drastically different. Like,
They are.
kids are just being able to execute more difficult things than they ever have been.
Especially when it comes to the visual entries and dismounts into these stunts, like how to get here. I'm just like, oh my goodness, like how do they even do that? Like you look at these teams, I'm like, that is like great choreography. Like that looks really good. And like you said, being able to do those skills with nice straight legs, pointed toes, it definitely has changed for sure.
So there's been a big hot topic of white shoes versus black shoes for pointed toes. What's your take on that?
Black shoes definitely look better. I think black shoes look better.
Okay, so are white shoes or black shoes easier to judge for pointed toes?
I feel like black shoes are easier to judge.
Really?
I do.
Interesting.
There's been like this whole big debate that white shoes are easier to see pointed toes in than
Really?
black shoes. Yeah.
I feel like it's easier. I guess in a sense, I can see why people say it's easier because everybody wears white shoes. But I feel like when you see a team with different shoes, like the color black, it makes you be like, you look more. I don't know, like it's more. I don't know.
You
it's
gravitate more
different.
to it.
It is because you don't ever see a lot of black shoes.
Yeah, all of our teams wear black shoes.
Yeah.
And so we were all like, the girls were all talking about how, well, so-and-so has white shoes at the gym and you can see her pointed toes, but the black shoes, you can't see the pointed toes.
Yes.
Really? Why is there a difference?
Because it just disappears. Like you cannot see, the white stands out typically against like a dark floor.
Yes. And then Lewis was talking about Summit. The Summit mat is black. And so
That makes
he's
sense
like,
there. That
he
does make
said,
sense there.
he's
He said,
like,
wear black
wear
shoes
black shoes.
and high black socks. And you'll never see the bent knees.
Lewis.
You'll never see the bent knees or the pointed toe.
The floors are black. He is right.
Yes.
But in that
we
instance,
do.
I feel like white shoes will look better.
I like white shoes.
Oh, I do. I prefer white shoes too. Yeah, I definitely
100%
prefer white
like
shoes.
Yeah, it's like one of those things I go back and forth depending on the uniform. Like white uniform, white shoes, I love it. Black uniform, black shoes.
I can see that. Yeah, because the white don't look good with black.
No.
Yeah.
All right, so we got a part of our podcast. It's questions that hit hard. So all the questions that you thought were the hard ones, well, those aren't the hard ones.
Okay.
So it goes rapid fire.
Yeah.
Just don't even put a ton of thought into it. We'll start off easy and then we'll get harder as we go.
Okay.
All
start
right.
off?
So when the teams come on the mat and they're doing their little shimmering and they're jumping up and down, does it really make a difference?
No. Save your energy for your routine.
I love it.
I want to stay here for a second.
It doesn't make a difference.
Because my question was going to be, do you prefer routines to come out very regimented and just focused and none of the, jibbly jobbly?
Yeah, you see
like where they're
bouncing
doing
up
the
and down.
handshakes and they're screaming
like,
and all this stuff.
And they're,
I won't say the
shimmers.
gym's name. You might. They're local here. I love how they walk out. Well, it's y'all's gym, ATA.
Oh, yeah.
How they walk out in a straight line.
Yes.
Yeah.
When I
2 by
see
2.
them, yes, I'm like, yes, come on, because I can count easy. I'm not having to stand up with my clipboard and do all that counting. I love it. No, I like that y'all walk out in a straight line, and if you want to get there and smile and like this, fine. But all that extra stuff, bumping and hip bumping and all that shaking, no.
So it doesn't play any factor.
For me, it doesn't. No.
Okay, my question. Would you rather deal with blood or throw up on the mat?
Blood.
Oh.
Throw up stinks.
Yeah.
And it's chunky and it has different variation. It looks different. Definitely blood. Blood is always going to be red. Blood for hands down. I can do both, but I prefer blood. Put my glove on and get cleaning.
I love this. Okay. So what is when you're going to judge, whether you're going to coach a team, what is the one thing that you would start your day off doing?
Prayer. I say a prayer. I do. When it comes to when I'm coaching, I say a prayer for my teams and nobody gets hurt, for all the teams in our division. I pray. And then when it comes to judging, I pray that it's not a long day. It's not chaotic. Teams are out here ready to execute. It's a great, smooth day. And I pray for all the athletes that no one gets seriously injured. I start off with prayer.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's awesome because we all know that the day does get chaotic.
It does.
Teams do not go out and execute.
No.
The schedule does get pushed.
If somebody gets hurt. Yes, we got to go back. Yes, it does.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Favorite snack that you eat up in the crow's nest?
Well, now that I'm dieting, I like these Ritz toasted ranch crackers.
Oh,
they're very good. Don't eat one. They're addicting. But if I wasn't dieting, I love a good Dorito. A little red pack of Doritos.
I was going to ask blue or reds.
Reds.
Red?
Reds hand down.
So I'm going to swap a little out of All-Star and go back into the school side of things. What do you think really sets a really good high school cheer team apart? Because I know there's different qualities that you are looking for from an all-star to a high schooler, but what do you think really sets a great high school cheerleader apart?
Apart from?
Like from their like somebody that they might be trying out for. What are you looking for? What really is like, wow, they're going to be an incredible high school cheerleader?
Being able to be coachable. I think that's very important. You don't always got to have the best skills, but if you are coachable, you're open to learning and feedback. And I think that makes the most successful athletes.
Cheerleading falls off the face of the earth. It's no longer an option. What do you do with your time? Because there's going to be a lot of it.
I'm going to write a book. I like to write. I like to read. I read like 6 books a month. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to spend my time writing a book.
Wait, you said you read 6 books a month?
I love to read.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Okay, so follow up to that. Do you prefer like I say real books, but real books or like a Kindle type?
No, I like a real book so I can lick and flip the page and highlight if I need to.
Oh,
yes. And I keep all my books. I don't let anybody borrow them. I keep all my books.
Don't ask to borrow.
Favorite book you've ever read?
Ooh. Oh gosh, I have a lot. Let me think about this. I've read a lot of books. I'm gonna tell you whose book that Prince Harry's book is probably my favorite book to read. Spare.
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you why, because his book I feel like was very raw. It was a thick book, very thick book. And I read it in like 2 days. It was very raw. And people think that he's like not normal because he's a prince, but like he really opened up about a lot of things. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, it was a really good book. It was a really good book. And I liked It Started With Us and Ended With Us by Colleen Hoover. Those were books I finished in a day. Like I've read a lot of books.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any superstitions on comp day?
No, I'm not a superstitious person.
No?
Mm-mm.
If you could meet anyone in the cheer industry, whether it be someone really high up from varsity that you would like to share some thoughts with, whether it's one of the cheer celebrities, who would you meet in the industry? Who do you feel like you could learn from?
I don't know. I mean, that's a hard question. I mean, because I'm not into like the cheer celebrity stuff. I'm not into that. I don't know who I would like to meet in the cheer world. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I feel like I've learned from people who've been coaching longer than I have, or not coaching, judging longer than I have. I even learned from my coaching friends. Like, I feel like that's how I learn, like, by experience,
Absolutely.
my fails. So I don't know. I don't know. Like when I see like big people up in the companies, I'm just like, oh, they're just a normal person. Like, I don't do that. Oh my God. That's, I don't do that. So
That's what you felt like when you heard about HITSZN Media. You're like, oh, look at that guy. Starting that big company. What's your favorite? Okay, this is going to be a threefold question.
Ooh.
Do you prefer, what size team do you prefer judging?
Small.
Okay.
Small sauce team.
What division do you like?
3 is my favorite.
Okay. And what age group?
Ooh, that's between like youth and juniors. I'll go juniors.
So a small junior 3 team is your sweet spot.
I just like judging level 3, period.
This is the tumbling.
I just like level 3, everything level 3. It's not even the tumbling, but something about level 3 teams, like I get it really, not saying I don't get excited to not judge other levels, but I really get excited to judge level 3. I really like level 3.
Level 3 is interesting, right? Because it really starts to open the horizon. Now you're tucking.
Correct.
You're able to go up in different skills in the peer, or, whatever. But interesting.
Yeah. That was, you actually stole a little bit of mine because I was going to ask, what do you enjoy? And then what's the highest level that you have judged?
I've judged a level 17 before.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It was a very interesting level 17, but I judged one. It's 2 years ago, I think. Yeah. A level 17.
Wow.
What's the pinnacle of being a judge?
Ew.
Like, what do you think that, like, you get to this, you experience this, you see this. I've done it. Like, this is what I came for. Like, the pinnacle of a cheerleader is probably winning worlds or winning summit, winning your end of year celebration, whatever that may be. What is it for a judge?
I think it is, I'm only going to speak for myself, is to judge worlds. To be able to judge worlds.
Have you judged at a end of year celebration?
I have.
What is it like seeing a team that you judged win? Like, does that play any emotional role for you or no?
Well, I judge a lot of teams, so it's hard to remember unless they're like super good or I'm very familiar with the program. It's all emotion for me. When you see teams like from the beginning of the season, they go and, create this routine and they work on their craft to be better by the end of the season. I think it's really emotional. Like when I see them, like, oh my God, they've come a long way. But it's not just one particular gym. Cause like I said, I've judged a lot of teams in some of these programs. I'm gonna tell you how I remember them by their uniforms. The uniform, because I'm like, oh, I remember this team. But like, it is an emotional thing when you get to see them celebrate and win, or they've been the at the bottom all season, and then they get to the top and win first place. Like, I think it is emotional. Like, I mean, I don't cry, but it is like a feeling like, oh my God, like they really worked hard to craft their routine to be able to win this and take it all.
But it's a dance, right? Like, because they go out and they execute like they're supposed to, and that they've been coached and that they've been corrected through judging throughout the rest of the season. And they take all of that feedback and they apply it, and then they go and win. There's that dance between them executing and then you as a judge receiving that execution and understanding what they're doing and saying, this warrants this score, which then translates back to you're now the champion.
Right.
So that's got to be an amazing experience to be a part of that whole.
I think it is. And I think that's a great point you make, because I mean, if we didn't give that execution or feedback all season long, would they have won that end of the season event? Or they didn't take that feedback and really craft their routine to make changes in the things, we said in that feedback, would they be able to win first place at D2 or D1, Summit, or even at Worlds? The
impact that judges have can be so detrimental. And I know we talked about this on a previous episode that has not been released yet.
Yes.
That the comments on the score sheets, and you and I were talking about this a little bit offline, of like, they really have to talk to two different people, but you have to relay the same message with kind words, because otherwise it can be taken in a whole different realm. And so at the end of the day, you're really trying to relay this version of telephone tag to the coach to say, here's what you need to work on. But the kids are going to sometimes see that. So my question, and I'm just stealing all the questions,
it's okay,
is do you think parents and athletes should see score sheets?
Now, we talked about this. We mentioned this offline. I mentioned to you that I don't let my parents see my score sheets. I talked about my team, and like I was saying, I go through and read the comments as a coach. I dissect that. I go back and watch the videos to make sure these comments match what I see, because I am on both sides, coaching and judging. So I go and do that. I personally, it's up to Jim and coaches. I wouldn't show my parents because like it does cause this issue. They get upset, it causes a big uproar, they're flying off the handle. And again, judging is very subjective. Just you're going to be biased to your team's program because that's where your child, goes and performs. But like I said, what you think looks good may not be what I think looks good. Like you may not know that how to execute a jump accurately just because you don't coach. You don't know how to do that as a parent, or what tumbling should look like. You just see your baby going across the floor and you think they did the greatest job.
Absolutely.
So it is hard, but I do think as judges, we give feedback to the best of our ability. Some of us are better than others with being detailed and descriptive in that feedback to make sure that, teams are set up for success. And I do call people out. I'd be like the little girl to the front in the right corner, X, Y, and Z. So that coaches aren't, because I like specific feedback to go and to know who to fix, and just like calling coaches back and showing them on the screen when we review videos. Well, look at these two right here. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill her. Like we've talked to her about that. Like, so most coaches know who it is on their team that's not, so I think that's a thin line. If that's what works for programs to show the parents the score sheets, then you go at it. Me personally, I don't do it. And I wouldn't do it just because parents don't know how to really interpret score sheets like coaches do, or, how to, really, because like you said, we got to be mindful of what we write on there. Because there's been some times where I want to be like, who choreographed your routine? Like, what is this? Like, why, why is this out on the floor? Like, how long have you been coaching? Like, parents are really paying money to your gym. Like, these are things that I really want to say, but you can't say that.
You can't say that.
And you got to find the right words to be able to say that to get your point across.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, what in the world? And I know parents got to be thinking the same thing when they see other teams looking better and your team's looking like they're out there riding tractors and running into each other. Like parents got to be like, something ain't right here,
Yeah.
So I say if that works to showing your parents the score sheets and y'all having a meeting about it and discussing, great. But I think I think it needs to be like where the coaches are able to conversate with them, like to interpret the language.
Yes.
Is important.
Yes. We talked to someone else where we were like, just like you said, having an awareness of what you're writing, because, sometimes those score sheets do go to parents. And, there's a really big difference between saying, okay, this girl needs to work on straightening her legs versus, okay, this kid sucks. There's a big difference in, what happens.
Coaches and parents will post those score sheets on the internet and be like, no, score sheets are posted. People will post them and be like, what do you think about this comment here? Like, they post score sheets. Oh yeah, 100%.
And I'm sure it's very easy to be tied back to, okay, this person wrote this comment and
I was like, what in the world? Yeah. People post score sheets on these little, little groups and stuff. They post score sheets. They be mad. Yeah. But most of the time when coaches do it though, it's passionate and they do it to like get other people's feedback of what they think. Like jump comment, like, somebody might not say like, you need to execute your jumps with pointed toes and more hyper flexibility. And they'll post it with the comment that says that, but then they post a video and be like, guys, what do you think, to get people's, feedback. But sometimes people are very upset about the comments, And
it's all cheer. It's just cheer.
It's all cheer.
It's so wild. Like it's so fun to watch some of these people spiral out of control about the judges.
And it's not even worth it.
No, it's not. What's fun for us now, and we've done it a couple of times this season, where like one of our teams will go up and they'll get a score or they'll, do the routine. We walk away and we're like, oh boy, that was rough. And then it comes back with a score that's so inflated. And all the parents are like, see, we told you it was so much better than you said it was. Well, we're like, that score is inflated.
And listen,
please do not get used to that.
Yes.
There must be a discrepancy here.
Something happened.
They had all their eyes closed when they did this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Poor judges. I feel bad for you guys' position, because you do get the crap end of the stick, and you don't get to talk to half the people about it.
And we can't. And I think that's how it should, how it should be. And it's hard when you're judging and coaches and you're like,
yes.
Or, you have friends. And I think most of us, we try to stay away from that because we don't want to be tied up with words being twisted, because, coaches will take something and run with it. Well, that judge told me that, like things like that. Nothing against coaches, but it happens. And, it is a hard job. Like we got to learn a lot of things, like things going on the stands, but we always give our 110% best efforts to make sure that we are judging accurately. Like I said, we're human, and judging is very subjective. Mine is the difficulty part. That's not subjective. That's black and white. But, I just feel like coaches and parents should, understand it. But like, again, I'm a coach, so I understand when coaches are upset. Cause like I've seen my routine and I'm like, oh, we should have won that. Like it was perfect. And then we don't win. And I'm like, what? And this ain't like, like I've been there,
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Top 3 tips that you would give to coaches when they approach you to challenge something with Accuscore.
Read your comments. That's in the comment section. Because most of the time we put down, if you didn't make difficulty or why we didn't get credit, it's there. Before you come back there, somebody's recorded the video. Somebody has this video recorded on your team. Take the comments and go back and watch the video. And I feel like it would alleviate a lot of them coming back there. But I feel like they're just in the heat of the moment. Emotions are high. Screw those 2 steps. We're going back here to fight. And just come with an open mind, ready to listen and learn so that we can problem solve together to do what's best for the athlete.
Absolutely.
I like it.
Yeah. I love it.
What about top 3 tips to parents who do have access to score sheets? What would you tell them?
Read, seek to understand the comments. Make sure you have an understanding of the cheerleading language. Also realize that just because your daughter's on this team or this program, they're not always going to be the best and always going to win. And to just not let your emotions get the best of you. Like you're the parent, but just make sure like when you get this, like do what you can to support the coaches and the athletes to rise above whatever happened in that competition and to be successful at your next competition.
I love it. Yeah. This was amazing.
Favorite place? I'm not done.
Oh, you're not done.
No. Favorite competition you've judged at?
Okay, it's a tie. I like Spirit of Hope.
Yes.
Yes.
It's my favorite, but I also like One Up.
So this will be our very first
Ooh, y'all are
one
coming.
up.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. We
Okay.
have heard we've heard that they've
Listen.
done a really great job with it in the past. And it's just a ton of fun.
I was so sad that it was in Kentucky last year because I like Nashville because we stay at what's it called though?
The Gaylord?
The Gaylord.
Yeah.
Listen, it's a palace in there. So I'm excited that it is back in Nashville this year.
Well,
I'm
we
excited.
cannot
One Up
get rooms at the Gaylord for love or money or
Anything in between.
Tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, One Up, Spirit of Hope is first, and One Up is probably my favorite. I do judge for a lot of brands though, and I do like a lot of their brands, but like I like Spirit of Hope because of the cause behind it.
Me too.
And I just like One Up just because I like the location where we are. You can walk to the venue. It's like a lot of people. I don't know. I just feel like it's magical.
Oh,
I was we were in Raleigh last weekend and I was in line at Starbucks. Imagine that.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And luckily.
So you were there for 3 hours.
No, luckily Jessica got there. They opened, I think, at 6 or 7. Let's just say they opened at 7 and Jess got there at 3:30 in the morning to get in line. Totally kidding. It's what it felt like though. And I was in line and the lady behind me worked for varsity and she was in charge of competition experience. And One Up is one of her competitions. And she said, you're going to have so much fun.
Listen, it's an experience.
Yeah.
I agree. Starbucks. I don't like Starbucks. You a Starbucks fan?
No, I like Clutch better than Starbucks.
What is Clutch?
Oh, it's like a local coffee place. You're going to have to get one on your way out to get to your hotel.
Okay.
Because it's that good.
Ooh, I'm not a coffee drinker anyways.
Oh, do you like hot chocolate?
Yeah, but it's not hot outside.
Well, you don't, whatever. You can have whatever. Love Spirit of Hope. We did really
do
well
too.
at Spirit of Hope this
Good,
year, which was
okay.
great. Yeah. Both of our daughters brought home two jackets apiece.
Amazing.
Yes.
I've never cried so hard on stage before in my life. It's just magical. So before we wrap this up, of all the cheer that you've gone through, been a part of, cheerleaded, judged, coached, what's your top cheer memory?
Oh,
It's like one thing that just stands out and say, this was it.
God, it's been a lot. I always set goals I'm gonna do for my team when it comes to coaching because like it makes me teary eyed thinking about it because like I feel like I've made a lot of impact on all my athletes. Like I still talk to at least 98% of my athletes who've graduated, got jobs.
That's
like
amazing.
They call me, we go to dinner. I just think seeing us grow as a team. I'm gonna tell you, I remember last year. I had a team. I like small teams of 11. I think yes, 11 of them last year, and we couldn't hit our routine, and I made them go to prep level. I called them the Mighty Mites. We're doing everything at prep level for our first competition. They didn't believe me. We were the Mighty Mites. Listen, we still laugh about it to this day, and we just couldn't hit the routine. We didn't do well. Like I said, we do 2 routines. We do game day and traditional, which is crazy, I know, but I love to do it.
And both high school, right?
Both high school.
Okay.
And when we went to our final competition, like our county competition, like our biggest competition, like that's the one you want to win. And when they hit that routine full out with no mistakes, we all got on that mat and hugged each other. Like it makes me tear out and think about it and cried. Like I feel like that was like the pinnacle of like my cheer career because like I wasn't playing with them. Like if you can't hit stunts at a varsity level at extensions and do what I need to do, we're going down to prep level so everybody's safe and we're doing it accurately. And maybe we can get it together. But when we did hit that routine out there, I mean, even some of my toughest cheerleaders who don't cry, we were all back there crying and bawling.
That's amazing.
Like, and I mean, I've won several championships, but I feel like that was like the big thing is like, I did my job. Like it was magical.
Making an impact. We always talk about that, about how cheer is just kind of like the catalyst, right? Like, but it's those life skills that you learn in between and the friendships that you make in between and the family that you make. It's just, you know, you go through these ebbs and flows of cheer. And after the first year, you're like, I'm never doing that again. And then you get into the second time, you're like, I'm addicted. Now I have a problem now. And then it's just, you like thrive. You look forward to it. We were talking earlier today. I was live on the channel and I was talking about how, I mean, there's really only a few short months left.
And it's, but that's the thing is a shoot months left, but then it starts back over.
Right.
Back over.
It's the 350 week experience.
And for me, like we're in basketball season and I'm getting ready, we have stunt in Wake County. Stunt season starts in 2 weeks. So it's like we do stunt season, finish in May, get like a couple weeks off, then it's time for summer workouts for cheer. Yeah. But I love it. Like it's a passion. Like I want to, my goal would be to coach, I'm just hypothetically saying, to coach until I'm like in my older 60s and 70s, because I just love cheerleading. Like I don't know what I would do. I would be really bored without it. Like I watch routines. Like I love to record them when they come on TV. You know, I get out there and stunt with my girls. I'll tumble every now and then, but my body's not made for that. But like, I don't know what I would do with this. It's a very special and unique sport, and it takes special people to be a part of that.
Who is from a collegiate standpoint, who is a school that like sticks out to you from a cheerleading perspective?
Who? This is a good question. This is a great question.
Because there's so many great programs
there's
now.
some amazing ones out there.
Well, I'm going to say last year it was North Carolina A&T. Like I was so proud to see them be at HBCU and go down there and win at Daytona. I'm a Tar Heel fan. I wish Carolina was more competitive, but they're not. Alabama has a good cheer program there. Florida State has a good cheer program.
We have an ambassador down at, she's at Central Florida, I think this weekend. Harper is. Yeah, it's interesting to see that whole cheer game from collegiate standpoint just really rise up.
And it's changing. Like every year, who you think was the best back in a few years ago is no longer that team anymore.
No.
It's amazing.
It's wild. How is it? How does it just continue to keep changing? Yeah. I mean, these skills and stunts that they're doing, it's like, how can you top that? But it just continues to evolve.
But I will tell you this with evolving though, when you ask me about my favorite collegiate team, I'm going to tell you who my favorite high school team is that I stalk, that I'm obsessed with. The coach doesn't know, but I stalk them all the time, is Live Oak High School. If y'all have never seen them, you need to go watch them. Okay, wait a minute. Is it Mississippi? Are they located? Missouri, somewhere down in there.
Live Oak High School?
Listen.
All right, we're going to shout them out.
Yeah.
Please shout them out. Like when I say that they are like our cheer inspiration for my team.
That's amazing.
Y'all, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. That's my high school team. Instead of collegiate, that's my high school team. Live Oak High School.
Who's your favorite all-star team?
Nobody. That was a trick question. Nobody. Yeah. I don't have a favorite all-star team. I do feel like there's programs that are stronger that I do enjoy seeing every year. To see them. Like I say, y'all, I love seeing y'all. When I see y'all come, I'm like, there they are. Come on out. Walking out too. Like I'm excited. I don't really have a favorite all-star team.
Yeah. I'm sure that makes it difficult too, especially with your judging in that you really want to keep the bias out of it.
110%. I don't ever want it to be where I'm in a situation where bias plays. Nope. I look at everybody the same. I don't care if I've known the coach 10 years, friends here, parents here. Like I've coached the athlete who's on team. I still judge everybody the same. Yeah. Everybody deserves that fair chance.
And I think that is amazing because I think that is really what sets good judges from like great judges.
I agree. I agree. And we have a lot of great judges in the industry. A lot.
That's what we need, right?
We do.
These girls and guys, these athletes, these coaches, these choreographers. I mean, everybody, parents, everybody in between, they all do their part. So we have to rely on the judges to do their final part as well. And when everybody comes together, that's really when magic happens.
That I completely agree. I completely agree.
Well, cool. Well, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yes. Thank
There's
you
just
for
so much
having me.
information and education, and that's really one of the biggest things like that we really want to give to like the parents who listen, and even a lot of the athletes listen as well, and coaches. It's, you know, if they can even just pick up one thing of reading the score sheet before they come underneath the crow's nest.
That would be, yes, read the comments first.
Just read them.
Because typically most of the time when they come back and to, you know, I'm not going to say argue because we don't argue, but to negotiate the scores and get an understanding why the scores, their comments is there why they didn't get it.
Right.
Why they didn't get the credit for something.
Yeah.
So when we put her podcast out, it needs to be like hashtag read the comments.
Yes.
Read the comments. Yes. I mean, I think it saves coaches time.
Yes.
And like, again, if you still want to come and get clarification, we welcome you to come back and get clarification. We want to educate coaches to set up all teams for success. But, you know, sometimes it is a little aggravating when you didn't read the comments. And I'm telling you the same thing. Because when I get the score sheet, I flip the page to the comments.
Right.
It's there.
Absolutely.
Right. That's the proof in the pudding.
But again, you know, emotions are high. They see that score. Like you said, how you demonstrate, get that score sheet, they flip those pages. It happens. But I truly love judging. It's one of my passions. Like I love being gone every weekend, seeing different teams from all walks of life, programs, you know, different states, and like, you know, meeting coaches, educating them, you know, establishing a relationship. So it's somebody they trust that when they see an Accuscore, like, hey, that's Chanel, let me go talk to her, because they know, you know, they know we have this relationship, this rapport, to be able to communicate and educate them to set their teams up for success.
Absolutely.
I love it. All right. Well, Chanel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
you.
Yes,
This
thank
was
you.
Fantastic.
amazing.
So everyone, that was Chanel Degree. She is a judge and a high school cheer coach. What an awesome conversation that we got to have with her. And just hopefully someone learned just even a little nugget worth of information. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much
Yes.
as we did. And coaches, read the comments, okay? Read the comments.
Hashtag read the comments.
We'll see you guys next time on the mat. See ya.
Bye.